I welcome you all to the second track for the day on healthcare. Our moderator for this session, Mr. Srivalsan Menon, founder and CEO, Mediocare.com. Having done his MBA from University of Madras, Mr. Srivalsan have an experience of 24 years in information technology solutions, selling large account management, channel management, alliance management, and sales territory region team management. Before Mediocre, he worked for 9 years in IBM at a senior position, including as country manager, managing IBM's newest acquisition, IBM Endpoint Manager, for India or South Asia. He was responsible for developing the endpoint security business in India and South Asia, including marketing to large accounts, channels, alliance marketing, pre-sales, and support. Before this, he has handled multiple sales management roles at companies like IBM, McAfee, and Citrix. So we welcome you to the panel discussion, sir.
Thank you very much.
And the panelists for the session are Dr. Sharat Damodar, Clinical Director, Senior Consultant Hematologist, Head of Department of Hematology. Dr. Manikantan Menon, Founder Director at Sri Sri Ayurveda, President at Sri Sri Alap. Dylan Joshi, Director of National Health Service, UK. And Anne Elsa Neil, Student, Father Muller Medical College, Mangalore. Over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning all. Thank you very much for everyone's time. To kick off this session, as we all know that the current situation, we all sitting at home and we are doing a virtual session. We all know the reason behind that, right? So health is always a wealth and it has become more valuable. Now, being an elite panel, a lot of doctors here, I just want to push across one question. Generally, how are we prepared on these kind of pandemics? And this is for everyone who are listening to this conversation, because we all know the data. Everyone is surprised on what is happening around it. Just wanted to, push across the question that how are we prepared for this kind of pandemic, and what is that learning which we need to take it from our current preparedness? Maybe I'll start with Anne. Can you?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So the first thing that we've, I think, learned from this pandemic is the fact that we need to protect our medical fraternity, because they are the people who are in the front line. So the fact that we should maintain end-to-end safety from the doctors, nurses, the cleaning staff, and everybody. So to ensure their safety is one, I think, main aspect that we can take from this pandemic and this experience that we've undergone so far. And it seems to be a very non-ending or problem. So we can also think about sustainability, like as in a hospital-based management, and look into aspects like that. So I think that's what I have to opinionate on this.
So what do you think we should learn from the current preparedness? What should we do as a proactive measure? As a doctor, do you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, so the first thing is how, as of now that we've faced such a situation, how can we manage such situations better in the future? So that is what. So hospital-based management is one main thing I think is very important, like how we can, and then obviously ensuring the safety of the medical practitioners is definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely, very valid point. I think they are the most important people for us to save and protect so many people. I would like to request Dr. Dylan to join us on this particular question and want to share the feedback, what he thinks about it.
So I think it's quite interesting that pandemics as a threat is not anything new. There have been, you have to only look at movies as old as Contagion to see that we knew even back then that this could pose a serious threat globally. What's funny is that actually we've failed to prepare adequately across the globe. Doesn't matter which country. All of us have neglected to look at this as a real threat. And I think the reasons for that is because I think everybody has seen outbreaks that have been very well contained and haven't actually spread. And each time that's given a false reassurance. And I think as we become more interconnected physically, it's almost inevitable that such things will spread. Of course, there's technical challenges involved in this, because you see pandemics, respiratory pandemics like these, like the current one, are always going to be easier spread, but there's various other things. I mean, just thinking back a little while ago, even something like Ebola, which spreads through a different route, had that same potential. So I think there's two parts. I mean, first, what is our health system's preparedness? How have we stockpiled personal protective equipment? What is the government's plan in case such a thing happens? And then, of course, there's the question of our own population. What are we doing to boost the health of people generally so that their own immune systems can cope with such things?
Yeah.
But I would request Dr. Manikandan sir to share some thoughts about it.
Yeah, as you know, what I represent is, is an ancient science, Ayurveda. It's very interesting, there is a terminology, sorry for using the Sanskrit terminology, that is what is mentioned in the scriptures, in the textbooks, what we follow even today. There is a term called Janapada Udvamsa. Janapada in Sanskrit, it means like the communities, societies across the countries, across the globe. Jana is the population of a particular country. Janapada means like that, you cross the boundaries. So it's like a pandemic only. Janapada Udvamsa means like that which can even eliminate the people of, So that is a thing, and it has been mentioned in the textbooks of Ayurveda, and there are measures to take, prevent it, and cure it once it is there. All these measures have been in detail, mentioned in detail in the text of Ayurveda. But then basic principle of Ayurvedic system is to prevent through a discipline and a personal and public hygiene. When we say hygiene, it includes the hygiene outside and inside our system, including the mind. Hygiene of the mind is also given a lot of importance in that. So prevention and cure, it is not only prevention is better than cure. Prevention is the way, as per Ayurveda. It is given equal importance as it is for cure. So Ayurveda is a science of, like, you can say, like one side about whole thing about the prevention, Swasthavrita we call it. How to maintain health is a question. And once you are sick, why you had the question, why you had the problem, and how to manage it through different. So we give a lot of importance to, like I mentioned, that the hygiene and discipline of the individual, the way of living, mental aspects as well. So that is why Ayurveda still recommends all the yoga practices and meditation and being in the wisdom of the self. Beyond the body and mind, there is something. So you have to, it's a way of living actually. Ayurveda, I will not call it as a treatment system alone, because it is a way of living by practicing which you can stay away from the diseases and the threats to disease.
Thank you, Doctor. I think you have answered it so well, and we have a great panel of allopathy and Ayurveda together, and what more we can expect. Coming back to Dr. Manikandan, since you mentioned about that prevention is the cure, that was exactly my question was, these kind of pandemics, right? We don't even know this exists sometime before. How can we prevent ourselves on these kind of pandemics? Because, suddenly it came as a surprise, right? It's some kind of a viral infection. It's affecting your lungs, right? So how do we know, especially allopathy, I will ask them because I know what is happening on the allopathy side. Especially Ayurveda has been very interesting and it is connected to our culture for quite long time. How do we prevent ourselves or create a preventive care for ourselves for any future disease? Maybe a lot of youth are listening to this. They all don't know Ayurveda as a thing exists today. I think I want to reiterate that, focus, this is our old tradition and they should also understand what Ayurveda can offer to them. So that's why this question is. There
are three aspects in Ayurveda. In anything, we approach the condition of the person in three aspects as a solution. Like there is the first and foremost is food. What you eat is what you are, is just stays in the saying, but it is a fact. What you eat is what you are, what you are going through right now, maybe. So food is the first and foremost. Even before we start giving the medicines, we suggest a proper diet plan, which is more important. That's what I mean. More important than administration of any medicine, any which ways. And second is the diet, lifestyle, even before medicine. Please remember that. So food, lifestyle, and then medicine is the approach. It has been the approach of Ayurveda ever since it has been in practice in the world. So food, again, we have categorized people into different body types and personalities, and the you can call it nature. We call it prakriti. A person is of a particular prakriti. That person has to identify what is suitable to them, and what is not suitable to them is also equally important. So avoiding what is not suitable to you in terms of food is the first step.
Okay.
Even before thinking about what is suitable.
Okay.
It is in general. I'm not talking only about the pandemic situation.
Yeah, I
Even
understand.
before the pandemic situation can arise. Yeah. So this is a discipline. There is a discipline in your eating habits. I would rather say you can break the discipline once in a week, not all the 6 days, and follow it on Sundays only, or the other way. So that is very important to follow a particular discipline first, and then the discipline in your lifestyle, waking up time, because the universe is so vast and it's all full of vibrations and energies, and anything can affect us. Anything can affect us. It's not just the radiomagnetic waves. This entire creation is vibrations in the subtle level.
Okay.
So
Okay.
any vibration can affect you. So that the body has a body clock, and it follows the clock of the nature. Sun rises at particular time and sets in the particular time in the zone. In degree wise, you can calculate the horizon where the sun is going to set. It's all predictable, and it's in rhythm. It's in a rhythm, and the body and mind also has a rhythm. So if you lose the rhythm of the body and mind, and if you have not aligned with the rhythm of the nature, so that is what we are trying to bring back through a proper lifestyle. What time to wake up, and when to have food, when not to have food, when to go to bed, all these things, and what are the kind of activities suitable to your body type and your requirements. These are all mentioned in detail. It's like a particular, we study it as a paper, separate paper, lifestyle. Can you imagine what important has been given to that? And then comes the medicine.
Okay.
And medicine is also very important to know about the concept of medicine in Ayurveda. It says if you don't follow it as a healthy person, you will have to follow it as a patient. The same thing, but in a different way. For example, those life-saving spices like turmeric and pepper and all those spices that we glorify now, especially. Uh, these are all part of our food habits, for food diet plan. So if you take it in a proper manner as food, and the same thing is medicine for you, but then you have to administer it in a different way. So if you don't follow it in health, whatever you don't follow it in health, you are forced to follow the same thing with proper enforcement in disease. You're soon to get sick and follow it the same thing. Uh, these are the aspects which we suggest even to a patient that comes who comes to our clinic. How is your lifestyle? It's a general question that we ask. And why don't you wake up a little early? And why don't you adjust your food timing like this? These are the suggestions that we give. And for some time you avoid this particular fruit, this particular vegetable. Then we are setting up the if you want to plant a seed in a barren land, you need to cultivate something on a barren land. You have to prepare the soil first. So the medicine will not act if the receptibility and the capability to process the medicine is not there in the person. So we call it kshamatva, which is translated as immunity nowadays. Vyadhi kshamatva is called immunity. So to support the immune system, to prepare the body to receive the medication, we suggest the food and lifestyle. this is the original practice, I would rather say, because nowadays the doctors may not be able to do it because the patient is in a hurry. So you don't have much time in the consultation room with the patient.
Okay. So great, doctor. I think if I wanted to make it consolidate the overall message, if you want to give it to the youth, is self-discipline. That's the most important thing. What I see
Absolutely.
in terms of preventive care. Eat very less, only when it is required. So they say there is, if you start eat food. They say, what is the statement? If you start eating food like a medicine, you will end up eating medicine like food. That's what they say. Right?
But actually I say eat less to eat more. That's my slogan to people. Eat less to eat more. Eat less means eat as it is, as much as sufficient for you, so that you can keep eating more, more in your life.
And actually, whatever you said, doctor, today, I think people are doing absolutely reverse, because they keep eating continuously throughout the day. Absolutely, the fast food and the junk food all over the place. And because of the pandemic, people got into this watching the series of television, whatever the series, they will sleep at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. So the life what we are living is absolutely against nature, what the body can take, right? The great messages doctors shared today is completely reverse it what you're doing today. Go to bed early, eat the correct food, have self-discipline. That will help you to create an antibody in your body, so that you prevent any more disease coming into it. Thanks a lot, sir, for this insight. I would like to put it across the similar to Dr. Dhilan and just join from an allopathy standpoint. What is that we should do for apart from vaccination we don't have today, right? It's expected. What is that we, apart from wearing a mask or not going out, what else we can do, for a preventive care?
So I think this is no great secret. I think actually everybody here ultimately knows all the things that are right to do. Exactly as Dr. Manikantan was saying, that it is about preparing your body to deal with any number of infections that are floating around in the environment. It's not just corona. There are hundreds of different things that we coexist with. And generally speaking, our bodies come into contact with those, recognize it, and actually prevail, so often without us even realizing. And the thing is, it's a constant battle for our immune systems. And what are we doing to keep our immune systems in tip-top shape? So again, it is about ensuring that we eat healthily. New evidence is emerging that people who are obese and overweight are more at risk. Even from the early times of this pandemic, we knew that people with diabetes, hypertension, these sorts of things were already at more risk or higher morbidity and mortality from corona itself as well. So if you actually look at what the evidence is showing us, and this, if you look at what the result is that governments, even here, the UK government has woken up and taken this seriously and has now started an anti-obesity campaign. There have been stringent laws just newly passed here on advertising junk food, on taxes on sugars and fats. These are all ways of trying to improve the health of the population. The idea being, obviously, we have a slightly different system here in the UK, whereby the government is actually responsible for the health of the nation. And we, because the hospitals are usually government owned, and the majority of healthcare provided to people here in the UK is by the government. So actually, when it's the government itself that's bearing that cost, they also start taking on some of the responsibility. And it means that actually there's a lot of emphasis on trying to prevent people from getting these diseases. And I think one thing that we also tend to underlook is exercise as well. getting a good exercise regime built into our lifestyle is extremely important. I mean, if you look back, then the majority of people probably didn't have an exercise regime, and that was probably because they didn't need to. You know, owning car ownership historically was always low, so the majority of people walked. The industries that people worked in were generally quite manual, and so you ended up needing a lot more labor. And actually, if you look at nutritional intake, it probably used to be a little bit higher. People used to eat higher fat foods and things like that. But actually, as we look now, people are living a much more sedentary lifestyle. I mean, all of us are sat here in front of a computer now. We're burning up far fewer calories. I dare say, if any of us did leave the house, we mostly took the car. And actually, in these pandemic times, we might even just order things directly to our house. So slowly, everything is becoming more and more sedentary, and we need to recognize the changes that are happening to our bodies and our societies as a result, and what changes we as individuals are going to make to compensate for that. So that's where thinking about what we are eating, how much we are eating, is very much key. And similarly, how much we are burning, what we are doing, are key factors in all of this. So yes, I think to a certain extent, this is where I can agree definitely with Dr. Manikanthan as well, that there's nothing great. I mean, we are ancient bodies in a modern world, and you know, we exist in that same way. So we need to think about how our bodies need to be treated. And that's a general thought process. So yes, not just vaccination, but getting ourselves ready. And that's what I would say.
Thank you.
If I can just add to that, Dr. Walson, from an allopathic perspective, I think what the pandemic has clearly taught us is two very important things. You know, health is wealth, and you can clearly see from the current panel, everybody highlights the importance of being preventive. So obviously, if you've been healthier, then you will also get through the pandemic that much better. And clearly, everything comes into play there. Your lifestyle, using the Ayurvedic principles mentioned by Dr. Manikanthan, all simple things, you know, right from your diet, your lifestyle. So all this then becomes preventive and thereby keeps you healthier to take on something like this, you know. Clearly, a set of, you know, clinical people, doctors have not seen this pandemic, including my generation. If you compare the current generation of people who are seeing it at their, you know, learning levels already. The second thing is the pandemic has been a great leveler, you know, so it does not discriminate between the rich and the poor, the educated and the uneducated. So you want everybody on the same bandwidth, you know. So when you give a simple instruction like wear a mask, clearly you need to factor in all of this, you know. Some fellow may not afford it, some fellow may not wear it correctly, he'll not know the importance of pulling it above the nose. So very small, simple little things. And, you know, it's universal for everybody, you know. And these are two things which have come out very nicely in this. Clearly, you know, we want to be preventive, we want to be educative as much as possible, because this goes a long way. And then if I come into the last part, which is where, you know, the allopathics are really involved, is when somebody becomes really sick, which you don't want, you know, and they land up in ICU critical care. That's when, you know, we are in the forefront. We really don't want to be in that situation. We think the patient shouldn't have got till there. But when you do, then obviously you need the entire workforce to come in. And I think that's an important area which is also highlighted, and the need for having doctors in that scenario. You know, we don't want people to reach there, but certainly when they are there, we want to be around.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Sharad, for.
So can I add on a point to this preventive care? Yes, sir. So one very important thing, I think a big eye-opener in this pandemic has been mental health awareness. And we've seen recent incidents have taught us that it is as important as physical health. Mental health is as important as physical health. So I just want to bring that point too, about how important it is to have a set of people to talk to and to open up about your feelings, and yeah, that also.
staying alone, staying at home for a long time, it leads to a depression.
So this lockdown is definitely,
okay. So thanks. So I'm now just slightly flipping the questions on behalf of audience, right? Now there are close to 1,000, youngsters who are listening to this call, and they are non-doctors, right? Now, what are the avenues where they can think about in terms of the career perspective, how they can collaborate and work with, the healthcare industry? Of course, one is the technology. Technology being horizontal, it can cut across all the verticals, which includes healthcare. I have taken, couple of thought of mine, which I said, digital is becoming one of the biggest thing. Digital, it means a slightly broader topic. It's like a digital healthcare, digital marketing, digital outreach, telemedicine, artificial intelligence, like the multiple things are coming up. I just want to perspective from the current youth who are part of the session. What are the directions which we can give it to them, where from an healthcare fraternity side, I come from a technology background. So how do we collaborate this and create a good amount of job creation, or give them the good direction where they have some kind of a thought process to the next level, So I just want to open up, and this is the most critical and crucial questions for the people, especially for the audience. Just share the thoughts so that we are helping our next generation to shape the career to get to the next level. Maybe I start with Anne, being the student.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm not really clear on what I should talk about. You just as in so I can basically talk about, I think, technology in education. Like now that we've seen all of us are having online classes and all that, so clinical classes are not really happening, and only some institutes are able to do that. So the online class perspective of this, using technology to educate people in this career, I think that's what I have to talk about. Yeah.
And if I want to summarize, you're saying any alternate technology to get access to reach what we want, that can be a good platform for them to reach. Like, for example, all of us on a Zoom, that's a technology product, right? I'm just giving an example. So something like around the technology, if they can think, being a non-doctor, there is always a possibility where they can get in the healthcare segment. That's what you're trying to make a point, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. Maybe Dr. Dhilan, can you share what is the youth should do today? They are being a non-doctor, what they're supposed to do, or what is your advice for them?
So I think healthcare is one of those industries that is a bit strange in the sense that it has always adopted technology. I mean, if you think about something like a stethoscope, that is a form of technology that is a good 200 years old, and before that, you can just imagine how embarrassing it was trying to listen to the hearts and chests of old people. Now I think slowly there's been a reluctance to embrace technology. Certainly things like these, Zoom applications, video teleconferencing, all that sort of stuff. And that's probably because, we rely a lot on face-to-face interaction. There's actually a lot of information that you can gain just from seeing somebody walk into the room. You haven't said a word to them, but you can see just from how they are walking that there's something here. So I think that was, or certainly that was one of the things that I was always taught from the beginning. And I think this is a key point that we need to remember, that this is a learning process, certainly for someone like me who hasn't actually been trained in giving diagnoses or anything like that, where you are not physically touching the patient, where you haven't physically examined the patient. You are only working off the history. And it's a new way of working, but I think actually from the feedback that I've had from lots of my colleagues, actually it is working well. And I think lots of people are looking at adapting this going forward as well, that you can often reach more people by adopting this technique, and then only calling in those who you need to see physically. on a much lower basis. So actually meaning that you have a lot more time to get to a lot more people. And I think there's certainly room there. And of course, in hospitals, the adoption of certain technology, certainly in radiology departments, for example, they are people who are very comfortable working with technology and have always been on that interface between medicine and technology. And so it's not surprising to see that often radiologists are ones who are coming into contact with teleradiology or even new artificial intelligence reporting of scans and things like that. So actually there's certainly scope. It's I think the limitations in medicine will always be, how can we be sure that we can really trust this? And it takes time and effort and consistent trial before you can adopt any one thing as being, you know, the new gold standard. But eventually it gets there. You know, I mean, just 20 years ago, CT scans were beyond the realm of most people, and now it's almost routine. So, you know, these are things that happen slowly, but are definitely worthwhile for everyone involved.
Okay, great. And Dr. Sharath, I think Dr. Sharath is part of one of the largest, hospital chain, and he's engaging with a lot of non-doctors to support him throughout his day. Dr. Sharath, can you just give us some kind of an advice? What is the current generation should look into it who are non-medicos so that they can start focusing on the career, maybe from your thought perspective?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think the healthcare industry depends heavily on non-doctor professionals. And I think you're clearly aware of the role of technology. I've also been delving into a little bit of AI, machine learning stuff. And clearly there's a lot of utility, and it's come out even more in this pandemic. So the first switch you want is, you want to try to avoid going to the hospital as much as possible, because you really, have a higher risk of getting infected. So everybody wants to stay at home, get all your tests run from home, which is possible. There's home collection, you get reports online. There are video consultations which have started online. So it's very easy. You can see all reports. Short of touching the patient, you're doing everything else. So for follow-up, it's great. Maybe the first consultation may be a little difficult, where sometimes you'll have to examine, but then now there's technology. You can image any part of the body and you get a picture, and then, you can interpret. So that's a great thing which has happened. And patients are very comfortable with the online platforms. So you need people for that. You need online pharmacies so that a prescription just goes, somebody dispenses it. So another area, in the pharmacy industry, everything is automated. You have people who can be involved there. So big industry coming up there. Technology in the form of AI, I think this is already just brought up. So nowadays, a lot of people are getting to a point where X-rays can get reported automatically. You don't need somebody to see it. You'll get a report straight away. The machine is learning with every image. Slowly, we will reach CT scans and ultrasounds. Another area I've looked at, even in the lab, your simple blood test, you don't need everybody to look at that slide, morning to evening. Over a period of time, the computer learns and says, this is what it is, Sure. So that's a great way. And you need people to do this, you need intelligent people. Don't say that only the doctors are the intelligent fellows. There are a lot of people there who are more sharper brains, and they're great in technology. So we depend on them. And clearly, I want to emphasize that this is an area for growth for people, You don't have to be always becoming a doctor, but you contribute heavily, So in the area of this, that's one area. Second is, how do you know that one particular drug will work best for a particular patient? So you can have neural network algorithms and pick out that, in this particular disease subset, this is the drugs exposed, this is the pathway, this is people who improved, didn't. Again, in the cancer care and oncology, we're looking at pathways for drug mechanisms. So another area, discovery area, where a lot of people sitting in their respective, research institutes sit and do this work and get back to us. Slowly, all treatments will become patient specific. You can't do this blanket therapy anymore. Every patient is different. And how will you know that? You need information and technology to help you. So I think these are areas of great focus for people. And I think the youth should get into these areas because we need all the help from them to help us. So that's my kind of statement for the day.
Oh, thank you, doctor. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you summarized really well. I would like to go to Dr. Manikandan to share his thought about what is his advices are to the youth from an Ayurvedic or perspective.
Before I start, I should tell you, thank you all the panelists, because I have to leave. I have a
okay, understand.
So, yeah. So my point, I will point the way towards what people are looking for, to way towards achieving that. I would put it as 5H: health, hygiene, human values, higher states of consciousness, and health, hygiene, harmony in diversity. So this all points to one area. I summarize it as wisdom. Education is lacking in the society today, and the non-medical doctors non-doctors in the society can do a lot in that area. Doctors are the sources for wisdom, maybe. I'm not saying all the only doctors are wise. You need to be wise to become a doctor, but there are other wise people also in the society. I would put it that way. So all these 5H we need to achieve through education. Education is missing. I have focused most of my time into educating societies and the people, medical, non-medical, because ultimately everybody wants health and happiness.
Yeah.
To reach there, you need awareness. So the awareness, now the technology is like bringing up, I'm so excited about the lockdown system of learning and teaching. We have developed LMS, it's all over the place now, learning management systems and all, which has provided a lot of opportunities for people to learn and follow. No, see, wherever the pandemic is spreading, one common thing everywhere is that people don't care, that careless attitude, because they are not aware of it. They are not aware of the consequences. So they are not aware, they are not very diligently, religiously following the principles that have been suggested by the medical world to them. So to bring them back to the mainstream, make them understand what is required, make them follow a discipline, and like Anne was saying, the mental aspect is also very important. There also, the education is very, very important. So I would rather suggest the people who are looking for an opportunity, a career opportunity, to focus on that, because education is the basis of all that we are talking about. Yes. Without education, nothing can happen, nothing can go forward. You can just tell, you're just talking and nobody's listening to you. So provide education systems in a foolproof way, using the technology and digital advancement of today, and provide open source platforms where trainers can come and the students can come and share their views and learn from that and benefit from it. That is one way. And the doctors will be very happy to use them if there is an open source. I have been facing that in the beginning of the lockdown a lot, because we don't have enough of open source learning platforms even today. So those things will help. And then awareness, combine all the medical systems in giving the awareness to the people. It's not like, why not the principles of diet and lifestyle that Ayurveda is promoting be used by other systems of medicine? There is nothing wrong in it. We are not going to change the medical practice as such. We are just adding on some things. And yoga, why not every system of medicine practice recommend yoga? Yoga is not just a physical exercise. Yoga includes the mental aspects also. So it's a complete approach to health. And through the advancement, making use of the digital technology, everything that is available today, we should be doing 10 times much more than what we are able to do today. So it's a combined effect that is required with one common goal in mind. And then, like we have been saying before 2000, health to all by 2080, which didn't happen. Now let's talk about 2050 at least.
That's true.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Pardon me, I must be taking leave right now.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you very much.
Thanks
for your time. We'll be in touch with you. In case there are questions, we will reach out to you. Maybe we can answer it later.
Please. I'll be happy to answer the questions through email or maybe in another session if you want.
Sure.
We'll do that.
Sure, doctor. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Dhilan and Sharat ji all. Thank you for your time and company.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Okay, so now I would like to put across a very most underutilized topic, or people have not thought about it from an younger generation, which when I was young, and most of us when we were young at some point, and is still young. How to mitigate the cost of a healthcare treatments? Because in our country, we don't have a social security, and we don't want to go to ESI hospital. Right, we don't know whether he will come back or not. I'm just asking, as a common man, there are multiple schemes government is bringing it across, and I can see people say that government hospitals are better, but our own the leaders are not going and getting admitted there, so which is surprising to me, right? I don't want to get into a political debate here. Now everyone is going to spend certain amount of money to take care of the health. And all doctors are here when they all know the cost of healthcare is increasing every year, right? For example, oncology, right? For example, Dr. Sharat is there. The average treatment of any cancer patient is 35 lakhs, right? Which is the cost from starting the day till whatever happens. Now, how many people are prepared to spend 35 lakhs of rupees today, right? How many people can afford 35 lakhs of rupees? I'm just saying, and cancer being all over the place today, right? And what is the advice, or what is that which we need to do in an younger generation? There are youths are there, they'll get older over a period of time, they will have some diseases coming forward. There is a family history of chronic diseases. You have diabetes, hypertension, all these things are there. Cancer being one among can go through your DNA, right? What is the advice, Dr. Sharat, which I because being a doctor, you are in a very large institution. You must have seen many patients who are coming there. The institution involved in a lot of charity activity. But how should we prepare to mitigate the cost of healthcare for tomorrow's needs?
Yeah, thank you, Walson. I think a very apt point you brought up. It is a big issue, the cost of healthcare. When you look at the US, you feel good that it is about 1/10 of the cost in India. But even that is unaffordable for most people. And I think you hit the nail right on the head when you brought up the cost issue. And clearly we have to look at that. So what would I advise the youth? So the first thing is, when you start your job, you take health insurance for you and your family. That's an absolute, because we don't get it from the government. The government has got some schemes which are actually being implemented. I'm glad. And even most of the hospitals do cater to that subset. I also see such patients who come under various schemes. It's a very limited amount of money which is kept aside. It's really difficult to manage with that. But then end of the day, you have to do whatever you can with that resource and help the patient, because end of the day, as doctors, we have to help our patients. Now, how can we cut costs? Obviously, we have to improve health services across the country. You cannot be going on saying private, government, this and that and all that. It has to improve across the board. Some facilities, infrastructure has to improve. One good thing in India, what we're seeing now is the introduction of generic medicines which have come in. So a lot of the drugs which were unavailable earlier, we've got the generic versions from our own pharmacies, and we've used it. And from my own experience, it's just as good. We've got published data. So this is a big help for our patients. It significantly cuts cost. A lot of investigations are also nowadays done in-house. A lot of the so-called high-end treatments are available in the country. So earlier, you had to go out of country for any transplant or high-end surgery, everything done in-house. In every city, you can get everything done. So that's another big cost saving factor. Now, clearly, you don't want to get to the point of spending it on healthcare. That's why prevention of disease is very, very vital. And thereby, keeping a healthy lifestyle, like what Dr. Manikantan and the others also mentioned, having a regular health checkup, you have to be preventive. And especially when you brought up the cancer problem in our country, it's now the second or the third biggest problem. We've gone past infection, heart disease and all that. This is replacing it.
Yes.
And now people are living longer. You're going past 65, 70. So if you just look around yourself, 1 in 10 people at some point in your life will get a cancer, within your family,
absolutely,
your friends. So clearly the problem is there. You can't ignore it. You have to be as preventive as you can, which involves your lifestyle, because a lot of cancer is related to environment. You can say some small subset is genetic predisposition, but a lot of it is environment driven. So I think the youth should be aware of this. They should already say that I'm going to be living for the next 50, 60 years. How do I keep myself healthy and prevent? If I have to get a disease, I should pick it up early and get it sorted out.
Okay, so the answer is, one is to take them insurance to protect themselves from the family.
That's important for them and their family.
Family. And also, doctor, I would like to hear, see, most of the, non-medicos, for example, we get into a job, the company provides the insurance. But what happens is when we change the company, the insurance ceases there.
Right,
so my recommendation is, where I have gone through it, I always had an alternate policy, right? Whenever I am, my personal policy, whether I work in company X or Y or Z, there is always a personal health insurance policy, which I have taken care personally. And I also personally, I have taken cancer policy separately. So, which is important for, because see, we don't know what is going to happen, but just be prepared for the worst. That's all. So if nothing happens, it's good, but just be prepared for the worst. So, which is what I personally follow for myself, my family, my parents. So my request is, all, youngsters, start investing on your health now. But as doctor mentioned, healthy lifestyle, preventive care, that is the most important thing. Eat less, sleep more. I will not say don't party, but be be in control. And the similar question, anyway, Mr. Dhilan is in UK, but I'm sure he'll have a perspective to share on the similar subject. Yeah, go ahead, Dhilan. What's your perspective on mitigating the cost of healthcare?
So I think the question is obviously out there to the youth, and I think we have to say that actually all the youth are going to live almost certainly for the next 50, 60 years. You're going to outlive your parents. You're definitely going to outlive your grandparents. Okay. The thing is, the sort of technology, as we were talking about, that is being adopted by healthcare means that the cost of healthcare is going to increase. The newer cancer treatments, for example, the reason that they are more expensive is because they are more targeted. And that in itself takes money to develop. Now, the thing is, if we don't put any money into development of new drugs, then it's very simple. Pharmacy companies will not pursue that, as you can see by the growing antibiotic crisis, actually. It's because they're not getting any sort of, pharmaceutical companies are not seeing financial return on their investment. So I think we have to recognize that as it is an industry, once healthcare is then seen as an industry, and we are all participating in making it an industry, I think we have to also say that when we see that, you need to recognize that there is going to be a cost involved. Now, I think the wisest advice that was said is 100% that you should always think of your one body, the one body that you have in this life, as the most valuable resource that you have. And so if you are going to insure anything, then surely it should be to ensure that that body is kept at its peak, so that whatever else it is that you will achieve in life, it will be through that body. And so insurance, finding comprehensive insurance for you and your family is without question, I think, that one of the most important things. And I think, Mr. Srivalsan, you even mentioned that what happens, I mean, I think we've slowly got into this idea of health insurance only coming with your job. But, you know, health emergencies don't happen only when you're employed. And I think actually it's true. You need to think of it as being something that you need to take care of, even in all aspects. So actually, if you think about the average hospital bill and think about how much you're actually paying into an insurance system, the cost spread out in insurance is much less than the bill that you would receive.
Absolutely.
And so sickness is unfortunately one of those things that is inherent in the human condition. And again, this is nothing new. I mean, even in the time of the Buddha, he said that sickness is part of humanity. So we know that everybody at some point in their life is going to get sick. What we need to do is prepare for it. And if you fail to prepare for it, it's much like this pandemic. It's something that we knew that was coming and we didn't prepare adequately. So in that same way, I think Dr. Sharad's advice is excellent. We need to make sure that we are prepared, and that is not only in insurance. What else can we do? We can make sure that our bodies themselves are prepared as well. Eat right, exercise, don't smoke, drink less. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, so you told all difficult things actually.
Srivalsan sir.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but
we have questions coming up, right? I saw the questions. I'll ask the question. Especially Dr. Sharad, there is a question for you. The healthcare system fault lines are exposed to handle this pandemic. From a medical professional perspective, how can we prepare in future for similar outbreaks?
Yeah, I think everybody knows that, the pandemic took the entire health industry by surprise. It's happened way back in the past for even people to remember what a pandemic is. So people had to go back and look at the definition of it, and WHO also, I think, took some time to call it a pandemic. This is actual reality. And clearly, healthcare is so far always focused on when patients become really sick and come into hospital, that's when the preparedness is there. Now, when you have something so overwhelming, where you have a huge subset of people who may not be very sick, but still need monitoring, the healthcare obviously was not prepared for it. So that's a good learning, which we've learned from this particular situation. That's the reason why people cannot depend on tertiary care centers alone. That's when you're really sick. You need a primary and secondary healthcare system to be in place, which can take care of 80% of the healthcare problems. Everybody doesn't really have to land up in that situation. That's one big highlight from this. Second is, again, the preventive strategy, which all of us have discussed all this time. I think it's clearly been repeated many times, and it's very important the youth understand that, because don't take your health for granted. You've got a long life to lead. Clearly, you have to look at being as preventive in that as possible, because this will be in good stead both for you and for the healthcare industry, so that they are more focused on having to manage the sicker people. And everybody knows that people will get sick at some point in time as you age. Cancers will come up, there's diabetes, hypertension, so many other diseases. There are other infectious diseases, so we should not ignore the other infectious disease, So we've still got malaria, dengue, and tuberculosis to treat. Just because, the COVID is there doesn't mean they disappeared. So, there is enough of that burden. So these are things which I think are very important for us to remember. And I think that's the message we should go across to the youth. Clearly, we also need a larger number of doctors, at least in our country, because that's one way to help the system. We don't have enough, doctors to actually handle this population. So I would still encourage people to become doctors, but the ones who don't, please do focus on still contributing to the healthcare industry. Okay.
Yeah, so great, Dr. Sharad. Everybody wants to become a doctor, it's like aspiration. Everyone wants to become a pilot, when they're growing up. But how many fighter pilots come out of country? Similarly, the doctors, right?
True.
We can't have more than 50,000 doctors coming out in a year. That's where it is India, right? Anyway, the continuously one common question I'm get to see is, what are the careers opening up in a big numbers in healthcare space? So this is the second time I've been asked this question. I want the perspective thinking, which is the non-medical. We did discuss about this. Maybe it's not reached them. What are the jobs they can, doctor, since you are in the hospital, so non-medical jobs, what are the skills which is required for the people? It can be the lab technician. It can be somebody, multiple things around you, which works around it. So can you just put across, leaving a technology aside, the core healthcare support staff system which you have in your office, right? What are the top 5 skills which people can look into it? Plus, we can add a technology which is like a digital and telemedicine. We can add later to that. But can you just share, Dr. Sharath, on that?
Yeah, I'll just add. So if you look at even any big hospital, and then you say, this is where all the healthcare actually happens, you'll see about 10-15% will actually be the doctors there. The rest of it is a huge number of paramedical staff. And then you even have the non-paramedical also, totally non-related to the healthcare industry. So there's a lot which is going on in this huge setup, which is all interlinked. You're heavily dependent. So, we just do patient care. We make a diagnosis, plan out a treatment. For it to be implemented at ground level, it starts from the pharmacist to the nurse, to the housekeeping, to the security chap, to the person who's cleaning the place, the transport chap. So these are all secondary jobs which are part of the healthcare industry. Okay. And these are equally important because they all contribute to the end of the day to the well-being. Suppose your AHU is not working, or your room air changes are not what it's supposed to be, your temperature is not maintained. It totally affects patient care in the ICU. There's a lot of technology which is happening there in the hospital. So that's why I said that's an area where people can focus. So please remember, paramedical industry is equally important. The pharmaceutical industry equally important. The laboratory industry, very important. Everything is lab based nowadays. A lot of blood tests, a lot of radiology tests, all lab driven. So a big area where there is scope for people who are totally non-medical at all. So you do a simple course, you become good at it. You're a professional in that area. You're highly sought after that. That's 3 components I've covered. The other 2 areas where, artificial intelligence and IT is coming into play is a lot of healthcare is now technology driven. You need data, you need information, you need somebody to analyze that and then try and improve your healthcare system so that you can also reduce cost. So the only way to do that is to analyze, what your outcomes are, how can you improve small little things, just even the patient experience when he comes into hospital. It's so important from the time he enters, even before he gets to the doctor. He'll meet 10 people before that. They're all important people. So these are the areas where we want, people to focus on. And clearly the last step in that is, once you get all this data, if you can automate a lot of things and become less dependent on that one individual, then it goes a long way in taking care of patient care. And these are areas which are coming up in a huge way. And I think there are big industries which are, based on this, where people can certainly contribute. And this is a good area for people to focus on.
That's a great input, Dr. Sharad. One more thing which I come across recently is, like you mentioned about that e-pharmacy, right?
Right.
So today the healthcare market in this country is around $280 billion. So that's the whole market in this country. Out of the drugs are only $60 billion, right? And the drugs being manufactured, India is the #1 drug manufacturing house, right? Compared to the world. That's why your hydrochloroquine or remdesivir, all these things are getting manufactured here, including the vaccine from Serum or,
Right.
Bharat Biotech or whatever. Now, since I come from a technology side, some of the things which I would like to share from my perspective is pick up the career as a digital, because digital is the future. If you are a non-technical guy, a non-engineer, then you can pick up something called a digital. Digital includes your digital marketing, Google ads, Facebook campaigns. It's all about outreach. So any product has to reach more consumers, right? It can be a preventive care, it can be a post care. So now the why the Google company has been valued like $200 billion, because people are using Google, because people are searching in Google, people are getting navigated through Google. So there are multiple certifications are available there. Similarly, Facebook, right? Facebook, you have a LinkedIn, you have multiple platforms. Now that TikTok, it's become one of the big thing with that, youth, and it's going to become a Microsoft company soon, right? So there are so many campaigns which we can run, and you can sit at home and you can make the career. I know multiple digital agencies who are doing extremely good, close to around 30-40 lakhs a month, or 4-member team. They just run the campaign, they run the outreach, and they work with brands like larger brands. I don't want to name the brands, larger brands in the country to outreach, promote, and all these things. So that's one of the things which you can pick up. There are free certifications. You can go online. There is enough and more content available. That's number one. The second thing is the pharma side. If you are interested in the pharma, right? If you have if you have a little bit of knowledge on science, try to do B.Pharm. It's a very, very, very important going forward, because there are so many people, or so much of drugs are going to get disseminated. We need qualified pharmacists who are there. And if you are a B.Pharm certified, you can start your own business tomorrow, because pharmacy is the one business which is not going to get shut unless you manage it, badly. So look at those kind of, link. And the doctors mentioned about labs, right? labs is most important thing, where there are multiple places, there are franchisee of labs been given. Like I recently see one large Bangalore hospital starting the franchisee of labs. Now see how we can, as we call as clinical technicians, right? Primarily, there are multiple courses available on clinical technician. There are wet labs, there are dry labs, there are multiple things. So once as a youth, you're clear, you're going on the technology side, or you're the professional side, or you want to get into the hands-on on a support system, from there is what you start your journey, right? So which is my recommendation, that the easiest way to get in is digital, because it's a self-certified courses and go. Then from there we can take this forward. So this is my perspective. Maybe I'll ask the last question with Dr. Dhilan. So what your perspective, that what does youth should do? From an international perspective, you must be seeing a lot of non-doctors, like what Dr. Sharad has shared. How can we build the youth as a career perspective of, to support doctors like you for the hospitals?
So I think shortage of doctors is not a India only problem. It's a problem worldwide. So whichever country you go to, whichever healthcare system you go to, everybody will always tell you there's not enough doctors, there's not enough nurses. The question is, when we actually look at that and accept that as a fact, then we need to think about how can we utilize them, doctors and nurses, and direct healthcare staff as a more efficient resource. And this is where I think actually there's a lot of scope to look at management of hospitals, management of all resources within a hospital, and think about how can we make that more efficient. That can be exactly as Dr. Sharad was saying as well, of automating processes where we can, but also just thinking about how we are utilizing physical resources as well as anything else. And I think the easiest way to do that is to think about the last time you had to go to the doctor, right? So you think about it, you firstly rang up to make an appointment with the doctor's secretary. Okay, now, is there a way that could be made a bit more efficient? Could you have a published online diary that maybe someone can book in an appointment so that it frees up that secretary from having to do taking all those phone calls as well? Then you go in, you see the doctor does a blood test. Now, your blood test result might take you a couple of days to come back. Now, how can you make that process more streamlined so that it doesn't take 2 days to get a blood test result? The automating that laboratory process. Again, that's something that, I'm not involved in and I don't know, but I'm sure that there are ways of making that system automated or faster, that it can work in larger batches, that you can deal with that so that you're dealing with more practices all at once, and then getting those results faster. Then there's you get your blood test, then you get a letter written out to you. So now, does it necessarily need to be in a letter? Are there ways, you see your doctor types that letter, are there ways that can be improved? Can the doctor do speech to text recognition software? And then that automatically generates a template that can then be sent out. Does it have to be sent out via a postal system? Can it be sent via email, SMS? Recognizing existing technologies and how we can better utilize those. So I think there's actually room for people to think about the step-by-step process that they go through, and how is it that could be, I don't want to say disrupted, but changed to make it more efficient in a way that benefits everybody.
Sorry, before we wind up, I would like to ask the Anne's perspective. When she got into the doctor, a lot of her friends who are with the college and school may not got the doctor's seat. What are they doing right now? And what is a suggestion you give to the fellow friends that what kind of career they can take to help them to support the medical fraternity?
Yes, some of my friends went into allied courses, allied health sciences like nursing and fields like that. And of course, there are other options as well. There's physiotherapy, there's speech and hearing. There are many other aspects that is related to healthcare. Yeah, so that is one point. And otherwise, I think unless and until you're really passionate about this, I mean, in an Indian education system, a lot of people come out of force to this career. So even if you come like that, maybe develop an interest. If I take on on a personal aspect, I think I am passionate towards the ultimate that is treating a patient. I think that's what, more than an academic perspective, I think that's what I'm passionate about. So find your passion, and I think you'll definitely succeed in your career.
Thanks a lot, Anne, and thanks a lot for our elite panel, and Dr. Dhilan, Dr. Sharad, and Nikita. Thanks for your time. Maybe I will hand this over to you, and thanks again for the youth attending this session. Thank you very much. Yes, Nikita.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
so, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the wonderful insights you all have shared on healthcare with all of us. Thank you, Mr. Srivalsan, and thank you, panelists.